What do you reckon has made you who you are, Mike?
I don't know.
But do you think that anything in your past, the fact that you yourself were attacked as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, do you think, the fact that you were in an orphanage for a time, do you think the fact that your dad loved guns and you described him as mad, do you think that shaped you?
I've never stopped to analyse I've never stopped to analyse it. I've never dwelled on it or given it any great thought. What makes me tick? It amuses me when other people say, "Oh, I know you." Why is that? "Oh, I've spent so much time with you. I know you." We don't know what makes anyone tick. Everyone's a mystery to everyone, and everyone is a mystery to themselves, I believe.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
I'm going to leave the body language to you guys on this one. But there is one thing here that I think is amazing. It's a revelation that's such a perfect example of psychology in general. Right here, we hear him saying, no one knows anyone else. Everybody's a mystery to everyone, and we're all a mystery to ourselves. I've paraphrased that. So this shows one powerful tool that you can use today, right away. If you want to know what other people secretly feel about themselves and the world, ask them what they think most people feel and how most people behave, because we tend to think everybody else is just like us. So that he thinks that should make sense to someone else. So we're hearing his inability here to understand himself, which is real, and his lifelong inability to get to know somebody else despite spending these long hours with them. He can't understand the idea at all. So he naturally assumes that other people must be idiots. No one can possibly get to know somebody. We are all a mystery. And I think, yes, he's absolutely prone to doing violent and crazy stuff, but only when people are looking, and only when it serves his reputation and his desire to appear to be a certain way, because he's continually having to define himself because he struggles with that. And that's going to come up here in just a few minutes. Scott, what do you got?
All right, when she mentions the abuse, he adapts with it by rubbing his mouth, and his mouth stays open like he's getting ready to say something. And I think he wants to say something, or he's thinking about saying something. And then he makes an expression that indicates pain as he's going back and forth a little bit there, almost swaying back and forth. He gives the answer a lot of thought. And then, but he also has a lot of eye blocking, and he's scratching his head as an adapter. I think that whole thing really bothered him, as it would, thinking about something that horrible from your childhood like that. Then I think at that point he's moving forward and he starts speaking from the heart. And I think this is the first time we see him be himself. And he's speaking with sadness and concern. Again, we see that blend of emotions there, or expressions at that point. But I think this is the first time we're actually seeing him be himself. And he seemed, almost, no, I'm not going to say stoic, but he seemed like he was really being honest at that point. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, Chase, one of my notes says the last statement speaks volumes when he says everyone is a mystery to themselves. Because he needs approval so badly, if I'm in the room with him and I'm trying to get him to talk and I know that, I'm going to say, wait a minute, what do you mean? You mean you're impulsive and unpredictable? Or would you say unhinged? I would go after him to show that he has no control over who he is, and that all this bad boy he thinks he is just the product of, and poke on him for that, because he does show some emotion in this one. As a matter of fact, one of the more interesting things I've seen in a while, I'll go back to her. Tara eye blocks just thinking about his past before she talks about him being hurt as a child or being attacked as a child. I believe when he says, I've never stopped to analyze it, I believe him wholeheartedly, because he does the who knows face, or what I would say the who to thunk it face. And by that, I mean his chin boss is involved. The sides of his mouth draw down. His lower lip pushes up in the center. At the same time, his forehead is up. I never even considered. So I do believe what he's saying there. And then this is one of the more powerful things you'll ever know about the guy, is he probably has no idea why he's done some of the stupid things he's done. And there's probably underneath there some guy who is sitting and going, well, what could I have done differently? But he has to keep up this image, this manufactured process in order for him to keep his reputation, for him to keep in front of people, and probably to sell books and everything else. Now, at the end of his life, he's probably also having, regardless of what he says later, probably also having some thoughts about his life. People don't go introspective the way he did if they don't have any internal thought about self and things they've done wrong. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So obviously what he's saying there isn't rational if or links with any decent philosophy or belief system that you can't know another person somewhat. I mean, in their entirety, yeah, okay, that's a stretch, but somewhat. And you cannot know yourself somewhat. Well, his philosophy is he doesn't believe in the idea of relationships at all, and doesn't believe in the ability for anybody to do introspection. So obviously this belief system is a massive outlier from most other stuff on the planet. He really has put himself in a tiny, tiny percentage of people that are going to discount completely being able to understand anything about another human being and anything about themselves. It's a massive blanket statement. Of course, it is, it'd be nice to delve into the body language, but ultimately that blows everything else away, because it is such an extraordinary statement that when you sit there in front of somebody who goes, you can't know anything about anybody else or yourself, it's like, okay, well, that's what we're dealing with now then, is it? Like, that's quite an outsider character we've got now. And so what else are they going to be capable of if they're capable of that extreme belief system? All I get left with is this person is at an extreme, because I believe him. I do believe that he thinks you can't know anything about anybody else or yourself. What an extremely isolated place to be in. You probably couldn't be more isolated than that. He'll have spent some time in isolation as well, I imagine, which is true human isolation. Anyway, that's all I got on that one.
You guys can call me out on it.
I just figured you were sitting there having a moment. Never know.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm trying to look like I'm
You're
getting
getting
ready
up
to
there.
talk.
So what do you got?